Hello, everyone. Welcome to the HockeyBuzzcast, where the fates may try to keep us apart, but it's not going to happen. Patrick Williams Cameron is joining us today from the NHL writer, a great one of the best, and one of my oh geez, my things and I'm in the middle of a thunderstorm warning, so at any point now,
in mid sentence, it's just going to completely black out and cut him out.
Anything could happen, or you could actually watch somebody get killed by lightning through a window. Because
same for me or Anthony.
Is it good that I'm standing in a pool of water right now?
Anyway. Well, we had snow here in Buffalo, so I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, it's about 66 here. Sorry, Mike.
So Patrick's with us. Anthony's with us as well. We're gonna have a fun old time today. And first of all, by the way, I want to throw out there that I'm sorry, Funky called Zena for last night not getting that thing together because. Shoot, I gotta take this call. You guys start your great.
Go ahead. I'm
NHL. I'll be right back.
Okay, pre-show, go ahead, Russ.
Well, basically, you want to talk about the NFL draft, Mike. So go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I find it particularly stupid and sickening that in a time where we need something, we need distraction, and the NFL can hold the draft virtually without putting people in danger. Now, they said they're going to do this. The NFL, Roger Goodell said, I think it's April 23rd to the 25th. That's when they were going to hold it in Vegas. They're going to keep that date, but they're going to have everybody, I guess they don't want teams to be in their facilities because they haven't opened up the facilities. So they have to go to some hotel or something like that and do the draft, have their draft room.
No, they're doing it from their homes.
They're doing it from their homes. Okay, so
that's what was my point to you the other night was the logistics of that. That's the concern.
Okay,
people coming in and out with IT people and everything else. I'm worried about the spying part.
It's so ridiculous, guys.
I don't give a rat's ass about other teams hacking in to other teams. We need the distraction. Hold the friggin' draft.
Do we need the distraction like in the next few weeks, or can it be done maybe in about,
No, the only reason
can it be done in 3-4 weeks when at least you have a little bit of
I want to tell you something about what you can do at the draft if you really want to hack into the draft, okay? Because there's always been ways of doing that. I had this idea years ago. So my wife's sister is hard of hearing, and she's an unbelievable lip reader. And I thought years ago, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do with you, Bonnie? At one point, I'm going to take you to a draft with me, and I'm going to tell you which table to look at with your goggles, and I'm going to have you do that for me. I never did it, but but I thought to myself, man, if I could find like 5 or 6 good lip readers, plan them around the arena during the draft, what would you get? It would be incredible. So the reality is you can always hack into something some way.
But all right, and we're only going to get a little techie here, but Eck,
yes,
all the NFL has to do is sign up for a virtual private network. Let their people sign into that and let them make their selections on that. Those are very hard to hack because it's a one-way line, and you don't even need a password for that because it's private.
What the problem is the reason that they're bitching and moaning because they want an extra month to probably get more medicals and more of this. It's an equal playing field. Everybody is at a disadvantage. So just shut up and hold the draft.
Yeah, but then but here's the thing: you're laying out contracts, and I know NFL contracts are non-guaranteed, but at the end of the day, you're trying to maximize your investment. And if you're getting damaged goods because of information that you don't have, if you had a little bit of extra time to have, I'm fine with that. I don't think it's necessary that we need to have this thing. Under the current schedule, it can be. If you give me a 3 weeks or so delay, I think that's perfectly feasible for everybody to truly have a real even playing.
I mean, I'm with Anthony. I'm good either way. I don't think it has to happen. I think Mike is on
it shouldn't happen. I'm saying having a little bit of a delay on it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, okay, having a delay based on their fear of getting hacked is ludicrous. If they want it because they're putting people in danger for some reason because they think they have to get together and the exposure to the coronavirus, okay, fine. But that's not the case.
That's my logistics on it too. Again, you need to be able to. The hacking issue is less of a concern for me as the health issue.
But that's what they're focusing on is, we're going to have Bill Belichick with a bunch of.
Well, that's because that's something that sports people can grip onto versus that
the health issue makes a little more sense. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, if there was a health issue, right? But they're not congregating at the facilities. From what I heard, and I had heard.
I think that's the biggest problem is they're only bitching the NFL GMs because they can't use their facilities. Well, that's it. It's like you took away their toy. They set that place up the way they like it. They like their nice leather chairs. They like the food being brought into them. And now that won't happen. And they're going to have to do it at their house. And they're going to be a little less pampered. Don't you think, Ann? I think that is the reason they're bitching at it.
Ham and cheese sandwiches, baby.
That's it.
We're going to move on.
Make peanut butter and jelly and get done with the draft.
Yeah, I know that. We saw Kevin Costner in draft day, and they had the whole stadium set up with all the people in there. Who cares? Just pick the player.
And the Browns still screwed up. So,
we're gonna start on. But Anthony, I saw your tweet today, and also my daughter. The Pennsylvania school's closing for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like. My daughter's just like bawling. I spent like an hour with her this morning. I mean, it sucks so much. She's a senior in high school. Imagine being a senior in high school whenever 3 weeks ago or whatever when she was in school, not knowing that was your last day that you're walking around your high school. Like that concept of like not being able to live that is just so incredibly sad for her.
I got to tell you, that would have been a good day for me. I think I spent 3 weeks in all of my senior year in school, so I wouldn't even have given it a second thought.
Trust me, but I was the same way. But she has said countless times, as every teenager does, I can't wait till school's over. But but when
right.
it comes down
to the actual reality hits,
oh my God,
I teach, as you know, I'm a teacher in Philadelphia. Yeah. I have 3 classes of seniors that I teach that other than contacting them through how we're going to be handling things through the school district, through Google Meet and everything else. That's it. We're not going to have any sort of interaction beyond a digital one, and it's tough, especially for it depends. Again, Ross, I get your point, but at the same time, it depends very much.
I'm not everybody. I get the other side.
No, it's everybody's individual experience.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's you sit there and you're saying, okay, and you're realizing all these things like that she's saying, like I liked high school because I always knew I would see these people. They had to be there, and now I have to go out of the way to like make plans with these people. And I said, well, obviously that's what happens, and things like this happen. That's how I move on in life. But it's just if you guys know, just the point is if you know a senior out there or anybody, just do something nice for them because. Yeah,
I mean, having a virtual graduation is
graduation's coming up,
and
prom, like little things like that.
I involuntarily didn't go to the senior prom, but I know that most people wanted to.
Involuntarily.
Well, I got stiffed, so
I think we need to move on with the show before this gets
another story for another day, Mike.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
On your senior prom.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's move on. Patrick's been very patient waiting for this.
I'm sure he wants to hear a story about.
He's sitting in the dark, literally.
He's sitting in the dark. All right, here we go. Ready?
Yes.
Let's do the show. The freaking 15th, 9th.
It's Thursday the 9th.
Hello, world. It is Thursday, April 9th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello, and it's snowing in Buffalo. Mother bleep.
I'm Anthony Majoni from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world, brought to you by Survival Tabs.
Oh, God.
All right, and today we are joined by AHL correspondent Patrick Williams. Hello, Patrick. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Very good, very good. It's so nice to not see you, but hear you. Hear you again.
Apologies for the camera issues.
Yeah, it's okay, no problem. One of my favorite people, and we're going to talk. So we're going to talk some AHL today,
sure.
And then we're going to get into some predictions as well for the. And I'm going to come back from my virtual night last night and tell Russ what happened in all those games. So I guess.
Oh boy, yeah.
Everybody's excited about what happened there in my alternate reality that I stepped into last night. So, but first of all, Patrick, how are you handling this lockout? Are you enjoying yourself?
Lockout.
I'm calling it lockout. It's God's lockout, we'll say.
Yeah. Handling it pretty well. It's a little strange because, I think for all of us, this is our busiest time of the year. I mean,
right.
It's not a lot like, if you work in the, accounting business, April's your busy month. And in hockey, it's the same way. It's always been our busiest month, really. And you're going from 16 teams in the playoffs this week in the NHL, and the AHL would have started a week from now to essentially nothing. It's amazing how quickly it dried up. I keep thinking back to when you would watch one league after another. It was almost like a domino effect. Last month, just shut down, and before you know it, everybody was, even the KHL. So it's been a strange thing. I don't think anybody among us can really find any comparable to this. There have been the lockouts and the work stoppages and things like that, but nothing along these lines where I don't think anybody in this conversation, or really anybody anywhere else, can predict with any sense of certainty where we'll be 3 months, 6 months, a year from now. Who knows?
Not at all. Yeah, things are totally. It's hard, and it's even harder on things, I guess, like on teams like AHL teams, right? Who are very much living, paycheck to paycheck as it is, really depending completely on revenues from the door.
Yeah, a lot of times, in the best of circumstances, the AHL, at least for, probably it's a third. A third are in really good shape. A third are somewhere in the middle, and it can go either way. And then you have a third of the teams somewhere on shakier ground, some years better than others. And so for that bottom third, it's tough in the best of times when, everything's going the right way. And here we are now. I've just talked, speaking with different front offices and people inside. You have two concerns. One of which is obviously, where's your fan support next year, whenever they resume play? For one thing, how do you get people to come back into the buildings? Number two, will they have the money to do so? With all the economic uncertainty, that's a major, major issue. And a lot of AHL teams are in kind of those mid-tier markets where I think economics tend to hit a little bit more heavily. And the second part is your sponsorship base. Your sponsors, the first thing you're going to cut probably is that ad on the boards or that ad at center ice. That's big revenue. Those teams count on that money. And even the possibility of uncertainty, even if ultimately you do get that revenue at some point. For right now, you're just in that state of uncertainty makes any business wants to be able to plan, and right now you can't plan at all. You just don't know where your revenues are going to be a year from now, and it gets every level you go down. It gets that much more severe. The ECHL teams are that much more in difficult straits, and are all the way down to the lowest levels of the game. So it's a strange time right now.
Are there any teams that you fear in danger of just completely folding from this?
Well, I don't know. I think more likely you would see their NHL club buy them. Right now, there's about 12 teams that are independently owned in some fashion in the American Hockey League. Out of the 31 teams, it'll be 32, supposedly in 2021.
Palm Springs, that's going to be cushy.
But I think you would see probably an NHL team buy their affiliate before they would just let it go under. It's too valuable these days in the salary cap era. Too many teams have invested too much into it. You saw how much Vegas back in February, they really moved heaven and earth trying to get that franchise. Eventually they ended up buying San Antonio. It was something they were extremely really set on, and once you get your hands on a franchise, you really don't want to see it go. So I think that would be the most likely outcome, but I think it would be foolish at this point to rule anything out. I think that's kind of where everything is at right now.
Fortunately, the NHL teams, are going to have, the NHL teams are going to have to step up and help out.
Yeah, no doubt. Patrick, my question for you is, this year it seemed to be a pretty talent-laden year in the AHL, until it stopped. But give us an idea of the new talent infusion that came in this year. And the level of play, I think, has been going up anyhow the last few years, but I felt like the level of play this year was really good.
It really was. you're seeing more and more some real high end first round type picks coming in and getting some time in the American League. You had Owen Tippett there, 10th overall pick back in 2017. Eric Brandstrom's been in the league. Alex Fermenton, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, who wasn't a high pick, but if you did a redraft now, he'd probably be in the first round.
He's a talented guy.
And so you're seeing a lot of teams now. It's almost like they're hollowing out the middle. You have your high end prospects, and then you have your real solid veteran types, the guys that 25, 30-year-old guys who maybe they're not NHL bound at this point, but certainly they can bring a high standard. You want your top prospects to be able to play with top talent, even if that top talent isn't necessarily having an NHL future. So you're seeing a lot more of that configuration with rosters now. But yeah, it was another really strong crop of rookies this year. Maybe not quite the dominant one, but I think what it may have lacked in the high end talent, it made up for in a lot of ways with the volume and the quantity. So it was an impressive year, at least until it wasn't, like you said. So
yeah,
it really begs all sorts of questions now. What effect does all this have on player development? The development curve can be really quick and kind of steep for those guys that are 20, 21 years old. Now we really have no precedent for what happens when that comes to a halt. So I suppose we'll see. But this is a time where a lot of players really start to see them put on a lot of strength. Go from that junior size into a real pro caliber size. And now with everybody sitting at home, not skating, they're not working out. And you're just seeing a situation here where we really just have nothing to go on. I think when we see players come back, maybe all over the map in terms of where their fitness is and just where their overall skill set is.
Patrick, my questions could be a bit more specific with regards to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms in terms of just kind of a summary of this season in terms of the players that have developed on their roster, but obviously big-time struggles this season in the standings. Obviously, they were pretty far down in terms of being seventh in their division at 58 points. Obviously, playoffs were not likely in the cards for them.
Yeah.
Just a general summary over how the players are developing, how Scott Gordon, obviously, after being in the NHL coaching for a year, heading back to the AHL this year, kind of giving sort of a summary of their situation.
Well, I mean, for me, from a standing standpoint, they were probably the biggest disappointment of all. They were a team where July 1st of last year, it was one after another in terms of signings. They brought in some real proven veteran types. And a lot of them just didn't work out. That was kind of the bottom line for them. And that formula was, okay, we have guys like Morgan Frost coming in and, obviously Rupsov and some other real high-end talent. We want them to be able to play with experience and surround them and take some of that burden off them. And as it was, Morgan Frost, was kind of some of the younger guys that actually did a little bit more than maybe they could have been asked to do at this stage of their career. I mean, he's a 20-year-old kid. Obviously, he's a first rounder, and he put up big numbers in junior. But, I mean, there are tons of guys that come into the American League as rookies, coming off really strong junior careers and have an adjustment period. He did a pretty solid job, all things considered. The big challenge for him, as with so many players, is they want him to round out that two-way game and kind of break some of those junior habits. A lot of coaches like to use that term, where the things that you did away with in the OHL, you can't get away with at the pro level. So it's a matter of breaking those habits. So he came along pretty well, I thought. But I think for a lot of other players, you look at like a Rupsov, he had some injury issues again this year. His production wasn't there. That's obviously, I think, for a guy who they have a lot invested in, That's a little bit of a red flag. And then I think the other story with them is just so many of the veteran guys didn't perform. And as a result, so much more of that burden was put on the younger guys. And it's just a trickle-down effect where, they're asked to do more. Maybe they're not quite ready. And you look at a guy like TJ Brennan, a guy that was, at least at the American League level, expected, to be a real high-end performer. And he ended up getting traded out of town. He was a healthy scratch for about 6 weeks. So a lot of things went wrong. And then Scott Gordon, he had to go through that readjustment coming back to the American League. Yeah. In a lot of ways, it's two completely different jobs, even though it's the same title. It's, you're going from the NHL where it's win today and, that's it. And in the American League, it's a lot more about development, even more so than it used to be. And you're dealing with younger players. You're dealing with, I guess, I'll say the word sensitive, but they're just a younger stage in their career. They, I think, take the ups and downs a little bit harder, and you have to sort of manage that and level them out. And, so it's a much different job for him. But all in all, that was, I think, very disappointing team in a division that wasn't overly strong either. So they really did have a chance if they could have gotten themselves together to do something. But when the season was halted, I mean, they were 15 points out of a playoff spot. So like you said, the playoffs were not going to be in the cards with 14 games to play. I think you'll see a lot of changes next season or whenever we see them back on the ice because that mix clearly did not work.
Patrick, a couple questions here. First, I have never seen a more precipitous drop in performance than the Toronto Marlies had this year. When Sheldon Keefe got the job in Toronto replacing Babcock, they didn't have a coach in place. Then they hired Greg Moore out of the Chicago Steel, the ECHL. And I'm not putting all the onus on him because there was a lot of call-ups from the Marlies, but they never regained their footing. And, if you look at the standings right now, they're like 10 points. They would have been 10 points out of a playoff spot going into like the last 3 weeks of the regular season. Do you put the onus on Moore, or the fact that the coffers were a little bit bare after guys like Engvall and Sandin and Loigood got called up to the Leafs?
Yeah, they were another really disappointing club because, like you said, that first 6 weeks or so, they were rolling. They were right at the top of the standings, looking good, looking like the typical Toronto Marlies, I think, that everybody's accustomed to. And that coaching change hit, and you really got a sense of we knew all along that Sheldon Keefe was obviously a heck of a coach there, and had done so much there in terms of both winning and development, and really striking that balance, which is so difficult to do. But once he left, I can't put this on Greg Moore. He was coming in mid-season from a different league, his first pro job. That was a difficult, at best, set of circumstances for him. I think a similar situation, to Lehigh Valley in a lot of ways, is the veterans did not perform. Those are the guys you want to lean on really hard when you're going through your tough times, especially the first half of the year. Those are the guys that have to really start to pull the bus, and and they're making good money down there in the American League. They're making $400, $450 in a lot of cases. Sometimes you're on a one-way, so they're not playing for small salaries, and a lot of them there, they just didn't get the job done. Some players, Kenny Agostino certainly performed, but a lot of issues started to crop up. The goaltending wasn't quite up to par in a lot of cases. Or at least not as good as it needed to be. And then
they're both young, though.
Constant roster changes. So it really hit them hard.
The other question I had, Patrick, is you see a developmental model that Kyle Dubas has put in place using the Newfoundland Growlers of the ECHL, signing like big scorers like Justin Brazeau out of the OHL, who scored over 50 goals. Now they signed Noah Hoffenmeyer out of Ottawa. I don't see many teams, and they're offering these guys 2-year AHL deals, allowing them to develop, and then seeing what they do, and then possibly signing them to NHL contracts. Do you see other teams, sort of adopting that structure? Because right now, I don't see many teams doing that.
You see some. You see Pittsburgh's done that for a long time. They were actually in a lot of ways ahead of the Leafs in that regard. Washington does it. Tampa does a pretty good job of that. but you're seeing other teams. I mean, the Montreal Canadiens, they don't even have their own ECHL affiliate, which really is kind of mind blowing when you think about it. I mean, it's a team with a lot of resources, a lot of money, and you're in the grand scheme of things, you're talking relatively small amount of money. And the way I look at it, those are free contract spots in a lot of ways. They don't count against your 50 limit, contract limit, and they're tryouts. And you don't really risk a whole lot other than some money. And you bring them in and you see what they have. Maybe they have something, maybe they don't, but you can get them into your system, work with some of your skill coaches. You look at Mason Marchment, where he came from in a couple of years, came into the Leaf system, through the ECHL. Really, it was a raw player at best. I mean, and that's probably being generous. And it took a long time. He had a lot of skating help and a lot of coaching help, but eventually, at least got himself now. He's a higher end AHL player and probably at least a bottom six NHL player in the right situation. So. And that's something where you didn't use a draft pick and you didn't use an NHL roster or contract spots, at least early on. So it was a great use of their resources. And obviously the Leafs have money. But I mean, also the flip side of that is it doesn't take a whole ton of investment to build up your ECHL system and get players in there and get them all on the same page. And also just make your logistics easier. You're not scrambling for players season when you're in a 3-3 and trying to, shake a player loose and work the phones, when you have a game that afternoon because last night one of your AHL players was injured. So it just makes life a lot easier. And I really am surprised that you don't see more teams really start to kind of go all in with that.
I mean, how is it that a team like Montreal? That's nuts. I mean, they could pop a team into Sherbrooke or anywhere, around there.
Well, they're using the Brampton Beast, I believe.
Still. Well, no, they lost the Brampton affiliation a few years ago. They've been looking at in Quebec, Three Rivers up there, and that whole situation's kind of been a soap opera in its own regard. They want to put a team there, but there's arena issues and. Maybe eventually they'll go there, but
there's a big giant empty arena
there. A young goalie though, like Michael McNiven, a guy that's had some potential coming out of the OHL. He bounced around to 3 different ECHL teams. None of them that were doing all that well, and it really hurt his development a lot. Yeah. And he may not bounce back from that. He's 22 years old now. He's kind of been through the ringer.
And he was a bit of a prospect. You're right.
Yeah, he had some potential at one point, and maybe still does. But that was just not a great use of their resources, and it may cost him, and it may cost the team as well.
Yeah, that really is absurd. But you can see there's, like you said, in Quebec, obviously there's so much political stuff you got to do and move around to make something happen like that. It almost makes sense for them to keep it out of the province of Quebec in some way, shape, or form.
But I mean, even if you could get a affiliation, I mean, there's 27 teams now in the ECHL. Even if you got a split affiliation somewhere, at least you have something going for you. Now it's pretty much just we'll send 2 guys here, 3 guys there, and as a result, it's just nobody's on the same page. There's no cohesion, and you're sending your players into somebody else's system. They're not a priority, especially a goalie. They're going to let their guys play before your guys, and that's the way it is. I'm surprised though when you start to see some of these teams that really have had trouble over the years really building up a good farm system, and Montreal's been one of them in a lot of ways. And it's little things like this. It's just that cohesion. And you look at some of the teams that really do it well. Pittsburgh's done great for years. I mean, you look at how many players that they're able to at least bring up from Wheeling, put in Wilkes-Barre, and just solidify things. And I mean, we know everything in this game now is basically about depth, and the more depth you have, probably the better off you're going to be. And this is a pretty low risk, low cost way to do it.
Patrick, thanks a lot for coming on. Really appreciate it. We used to enjoy getting electrocuted, plugging in our laptops at the Spectrum, covering games with you.
Seriously.
I know. Yes. I know I'll see you down the road, but thanks.
I'm making sure to when we try to get into our seats to make sure we didn't annoy Gene Hart.
Yeah, thanks so much, Patrick. We really appreciate it. Let's have you on again, okay, in the near future.
Take care. Bye.
Well, man, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Patrick Williams in AHL. Yeah, it's great. It's great to see Patrick, and well, not see him, but hear him again. No, so we're gonna get into. I want to get into some predictions. And so yesterday, Anthony, since you weren't here, I need your help because
of course
we talked about we I don't know if you saw the show, but we did the predictions for Philly and Pittsburgh and what this would be like. And we came down on very opposite ends of things here.
Shock.
Well, no. I said it would be a tough series. I thought it would be a coin toss. I actually think when looking at all the series in the first round is the toughest series to predict because these teams are an entity in and of themselves when they play each other. And it's hard to sit there and say what's going to happen. Every series takes on its own character. Russ and Mike both felt like the depth on Pittsburgh was just way too strong for the Flyers. That their defense was better, their offense was better, their goaltending would be better because of Matt Murray being experienced. I gave the Flyers a lot more credit than that, and more than that though, I gave the Penguins less credit than they did. That was the basic gist of it because and I think the Flyers are up and coming. They are getting it together. They have a lot of energy. They've got a pretty good defense. I think
we all agree on that.
I think their defense is much better than the Penguins' defense. Honestly, I really do. That's where he disagrees. They give Letang a lot.
I think Philly's defense is better. I'm not going to go in far and say it's markedly better than Pittsburgh, but I think cohesive. I think there's a cohesion and there's a balance to the Flyers pairings.
Yeah,
that I think helps them. Now, the key thing I think for Philadelphia is going to be experience factor, and it's been a while for some of the veterans as well as. And it was 2 years ago in terms of this, but again, you have to get over the mental hump of playing Pittsburgh in the playoffs as well, which is not an easy thing. But if they have home ice, the key thing also is trying to keep their emotions in check, especially for the younger players, because again, that can work to their advantage if they're able to sort of mentally wrap around. Because Pittsburgh at that point, especially with Sullivan, is going to play a no frills, not an unpretty game. But the Flyers like to play similarly in terms of how they like to they play a four-man full four-man unit. I think it's a slugfest of a series, and if the Flyers played it right, I think they could win the series in 6 or 7.
Yeah, I had the Flyers in 7.
And this is what I pointed out yesterday, Anthony, is like, okay, you're matching up Couturier against Malkin like you usually do because he has success. What is the matchup against Crosby? And right now, the default is Kevin Hayes. I think that's a matchup that Pittsburgh exploits big time. Secondly,
possibly, although again, Hayes' level of play has been excellent this year. So I think he would probably relish the opportunity to go up against Crosby. And again, it'll be a motivating factor in terms of that as well.
3C would be tough too, though. It would.
3C, again, you're going to Derek Grant in that circumstance for Philadelphia, and that's where matchups can get. Yeah. But again, you got to kind of keep things within, a proper parameter, I think, for Philadelphia in that circumstance. And again, that would be the potential area where Philadelphia could have some difficulty.
And if you project going forward with Pittsburgh's defense, if they would have played starting tonight or yesterday, you're talking about Justin Schultz coming off an injury, Dumoulin coming off an injury, Letang always coming off an injury. Right. None of that's the case if they play in July or August.
We're doing this based on their playing in July. Okay, so
but then you also have in that circumstance JVR coming back as well, which gives you some offense.
Gensel coming back for Pittsburgh.
Gensel coming back. I mean, it's a full blown. I mean, it's nothing shorter than 6 to 7 games.
Right. I think so.
If it's less than that, I mean, so if you say 5, it's because again, I think
I said 5.
I said 6.
I don't think 5, Russ. I think it will be longer than that. I think any other key factor is obviously going to be how does Carter Hart handle his first playoff series, and it's going to be a lot. But at the same time, I think, if he can handle it, then it's a long series. If Hart has struggles and you got to rely on Brian Elliott to get you through, then you're potentially looking at a shorter series, even with Elliott having comparatively a pretty good season.
Oh, he had a great year.
Exactly. But I think in that circumstance, it gets tougher, I think, if you're playing Elliott in that matchup.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe the Penguins are.
But I'm going to say if all things being equal, if all rosters are equal, if Philly mentally prepares themselves to handle home ice and uses it to its full advantage, I think they can win the series in 6 to 7 games.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. So I'm glad someone else, because yesterday I just felt like I was on an island by myself here, and
so sad.
Not trying.
You were crumbling under the.
I hate. There's nothing worse than a team that everybody knows that you like and that you cover, and that for Anthony, it always sucks to make predictions for the team that you cover, because like Mike, you're in the same boat, right?
Yeah, but I picked Tampa Bay.
I cover the Flyers. I'm making a pick. It's the way it is.
That's easier than this series. It is easier than this.
I look at it also, Mike. Also, I look at it from where the team is playing.
Yeah.
In terms of they were rolling at that point.
Sure.
If the whole thing's being equal and you're rolling into the playoffs. Now, again, it won't be in this case. So that changes.
Yeah.
That actually changes the logistics of things, because we all know, like we saw with St. Louis, and any team that gets on a run, with the carryover effect.
I said Philadelphia surprised the heck out of me, and the way they were playing at the end of the year really impressed me. But I still look at Pittsburgh as a hurdle that, unless Carter Hart plays out of his mind, will be fairly difficult to cross.
Let's have Eck talk about how the process went last night.
I visited last night the three games that started the playoffs last night. I went to the alternate reality and visited them, and I have my notes here from the game. So the three games, if you remember right, were the Flyers and Penguins on NBC. On the CBC at 8 were the Leafs and the Lightning, and then the late game was Edmonton.
Which game was Doc Emmerich doing?
Which game was Doc Emmerich doing? Doc Emmerich
doing Pittsburgh.
He was doing the Flyers Pittsburgh game.
Okay.
John Forsland would be doing the Leafs and Tampa Bay with Dave Mishkin on the radio.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
John Forsland would actually have a full broadcast instead of that little area he has to do for the Hurricanes games. That's nice for him.
All right, we got to get to 5 series here, Ack.
I know, but we're not going to get to all of them today.
Had to get that Dundon shot in, didn't you, Russ?
The Wells Fargo Center was hopping last night. I'll tell you that.
Oh, jeez.
I sat next to Russ. I brought Russ some Take a Boost, and we had.
Oh, you did? Thanks.
We had a good old time. Anthony
Russ,
was.
I brought you some of those sushki too.
Oh, good.
Anthony was on the other side of Russ.
Yep.
So Russ was going into diabetic.
I was a little surprised they didn't scan me on the way in the door. They scanned, but they didn't pick up one because they had no idea what the hell it was.
In reality, this
security issue.
I was watching the Toronto Tampa game, drinking some Tang.
All right. So the big question going in was that that Murray in warmups took a shot to the head, like but he still started the game. So Lauren Hart was brought out. Kay Smith was brought out. The place was pretty hopping.
Why not Kate Smith anymore? No,
I'm not so sure they would have.
Yeah, I don't think they did the Kate Smith
reality where that was never found out, Mike.
Okay, that's fine.
Continuing the alternate reality.
I think they alternated with Brad.
There's a lot of strange things going on.
That's fair.
Like none of us has cell phones, for example. All right, so we're in the building, and no, I know, but people looked at me like I was a witch because I had a cell phone. All right, but anyway, so what happened? And they had the Flyers gave out orange shirts that said Y on it, WHY with a question mark, and no one understood what that was about. So anyway, here we go. So 5 minutes into the game, the first 5 minutes all in the Penguin zone, but Murray looked really good, pounding, and then Provorov goes to take a slap shot, breaks his stick. Getzel picks it up, breakaway in on Carter Hart. First shot on Carter Hart in, bang, Penguins 1-0, brings the crowd down to a silence. And what's interesting is it stayed 1-0 until there were about 7 minutes left to go in the game. And it was surprising because there was back and forth. There were almost no penalties called at all, which was pretty surprising. With 7 minutes to go, the Penguins got a 5-minute major. And the crazy thing about this was we remember what we saw with Pittsburgh before. It was reviewed. It went back.
Did Matt Cook jump on the ice and high stick somebody?
No. What happened is Konechny went after Letang, hit him from behind into the boards pretty hard. Konechny's blood everywhere. Penguins came out, scored 2 more goals. The Flyers could never get back in it. It ended 3-0 Pittsburgh. So that was the end. That was game 1. The crowd left unhappy for sure, but. That's how it goes.
Is there Swedish fish in the press box?
Yeah, but they're in this reality they're called Finnish fish, which is
that's odd. Okay.
But yeah, they're purple.
They actually taste like smell.
And they're purple. That's fine.
Yeah. So anyway, that was that. Also, in this reality, the mainstream media doesn't exist, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's only bloggers. because the mainstream media died. Anyway, so moving on to of course, since I was at this game, I had to watch the other games, right? So
right,
I had my iPad up, which people thought again was phenomenal because no one has cell phones or anything there.
This is the Watchmen. I swear, I feel like we've.
This is the Watchmen.
It's the Watchmen now. There's no phone.
I'm watching the game.
Absolutely.
I've got the Leafs Lightning game on here, and of course I'm
he's watching it on 8mm film.
I'm sending telegraphs to Mike, like over this out the Morse code thing to Mike, right? Mike keeps like blocking the Morse code thing every game.
All right, so what happens in the third period in Morse code?
I know. So what happens in this game was kind of surprising. To start off immediately, right off the bat, Austin Matthews is just crumbled into the corner after a hit from Victor Hedman and taken off the ice on a stretcher.
There you go.
It was surprising, and everyone was like, "What that?" That was just really. Mike's like,
it's the playoffs. I can't say Eck is off. Crazy stuff happens.
I know. So Mike's like, this always happens to me. I can't.
Mike 50,000.
Mike
come down the line.
He's a Swedish Nazem Kadri. There you go.
I know. Mike's lost his mind. But the interesting thing about that is there was no penalty on the play.
Of course.
And, so of course everybody in Toronto thinks they're getting screwed. And then instantly it comes back the other way. Tyson Barrie pulls down Stamkos, who's given a penalty shot. All right. Stamkos scores on the penalty shot, 1-0 Tampa.
And hold on. Let's stop it here. Even in the alternate reality, I knew there was no way you would have Anderson stop that penalty shot. There's no way.
I was going to say, and as he passes Anderson after scoring the goal, he spears him in the throat.
No, but at least X bias towards Frederik Anderson it still exists in the alternate reality. I appreciate that.
Carter Hutton comes in.
I don't live in it. So what happened next was pretty surprising though, because from that point on, it was all Toronto. And Leaf fans got a little bit crazy. And what was really surprising is Mitch Marner ends up with a 5-point night. All right, which was really surprising. And then with the game ends up back and forth, but Tampa really can't get any goals going. They couldn't score besides the one goal that they got on the penalty shot. It ends up 6-1 Toronto, which was really like kind of out of nowhere. Anderson was unbelievable in the game, Russ. I'll have you know, he made some really good saves.
If I wanted to really get my goat, he would have said that William Nylander had a 5-point night.
And the big news was there was absolutely no news about Austin Matthews until like 3 minutes left, where he appeared on the bench out of nowhere. He was back he never skated again, but he was sitting on the bench. They wouldn't tell us afterwards because it's in injuries. They don't ever tell you what happened. But there feels like there's
nothing. They took him off on a stretcher and had him back out on the ice.
It was like people were remembering the old.
Or no spotters exist in alternate reality.
Oh right, there's no spot. We have no cell phones, no spot. My God, we're heading back to this. Might as well be the 80s.
Anthony, it's like the scene from Heaven Can Wait when Warren he's taken off the stretcher, pops up and runs back into the game.
Right.
Well, if you remember, there wasn't a Toronto Maple Leaf player who like broke a leg and then came back and scored a game-winning goal.
Bob Vaughn in '64 Stanley.
Right, he was the one everybody in the press box was talking about. This is like that, the greatest thing since that happened for Toronto. Apparently, because you were in the press box and you were like, you're saying, yeah, this is like Bob, whatever. So yeah, I was pretty impressed by that.
So you time traveled to that game?
No, I didn't time travel. I was talking.
I was minus 3 years old in that game. And that
Mike was in the press box and was and he was actually had who was it what's his name, the writer, the guy who Campbell, who used to write for the Hockey News.
Ken Campbell.
Now working in that reality, he's working as an intern for Mike. I thought that was. Anyway,
and I'm sure he loved every second. Oh my God!
What have I walked in? What have I walked in?
I thought that was pretty crazy. So then the late game comes on. Right, here's the late game. I drive home. On the way home, I stop at Talk of the Town and get a cheesesteak.
Did somebody spear McDavid in the nuts?
No. This was a really good game. This was exactly what you'd have thought it would be. McDavid, Elias Pettersson, back and forth. Great stuff. But the story of the game turned out to be there was no scoring. Basically, it was 0-0 going into the third. All kinds of chances. Markstrom was amazing. Koskinen was incredible.
Costco's in that.
Koskinen was incredible, but after the second period was pulled. All right, which was really surprising.
We have a Tretiak moment.
It was he had to be hurt. I mean, there's no reason everyone. But again, they're not talking about the injury. He had to be hurt. Mike Smith gets put into goal. Okay, which
Mike Smith was getting in this game no matter what. I knew that. We knew that from yesterday.
All right, so here we go. So this is what happens. So then what happened? You get back and forth, no scoring at all, and then suddenly, Edmonton gets a power play. And on the power play, Elias Pettersson scores shorthanded, beautiful goal, 1-0 Vancouver with about 4 minutes to go. And for the next 3 minutes, the team scored 6 goals. It was astonishing, back and forth. All right, so it ends. So now we're at
it's 7-0.
No, it's 4-3 Edmonton with a minute to go.
Of course.
This is Blues in an alternate reality. Just so you know.
Edmonton with a minute to go.
Right.
The Canucks pulled their goalie.
This is Tang.
They pulled their goalie. Canucks pulled their goalie. We're getting a lot of pressure. The puck, Draisaitl puts his hand on the puck in the crease. Penalty shot awarded. Boom. Mike Smith makes the save. Back to the power play. No power plays. People in the box are like, they should have rather had the power play than the penalty shot anyway. There's 45 seconds left. Elias Pettersson circles, dumps the puck in the zone. Mike Smith behind the net, grabs it, launches it, and scores, which was astonishing. So Mike Smith scores into the empty net on the other side. Great, 5-3 final. Edmonton. So there you have it. There's a series sit right now. Pittsburgh up 1-0. Pittsburgh up 1-0. Toronto up 1-0. And Edmonton up 1-0. After that was the first night, my first night in the alternate reality.
So we need to hear the comments from the chat room because Anthony said they're active.
Oh no, they're active right now. Tang wins. Look, Randy Workman said, "Haha, Tang wins it."
Mike's favorite movie, Tangs of New York.
So we'll see. If you guys want me to go back to
and Russ does hate the Flyers. Everybody,
right?
Correct.
That's why I'm wearing this British shirt too.
If you want me to go back tonight, I'll go back in the alternate reality tonight. If you guys don't want me to, I'll stay home because I got nothing to do. So anyway, let's
ask Kevin Allen. Don't ask me.
Oh, it's Kevin Allen tomorrow. Okay, yeah. Well, I'll have to go for a couple games. All right. So tonight, all the other 5 games take off. Okay. So tonight, we're not going to predict all of them, obviously, but we're going to get it. We're going to do a couple tonight, a couple tomorrow. So I probably shouldn't even tell you what will happen tonight. So we'll wait. But because I don't want you to be disturbed by your predictions. But tonight I wanted to start off with I think what might be the most. There's 2 interesting games that rested around. So we have Washington, Carolina in the East. That's the only that's left in the East. And one more in the East, right? I gotta look at my list. Sorry.
Yeah, there should be
Boston.
Should be another one.
You got Boston.
Boston. The Islanders. Boston and the Islanders. Boston and the Islanders. And in the West, we have St. Louis, Calgary, Colorado, Dallas, and Vegas, Nashville. All right. So I wanted to talk today about St. Louis, Calgary, and Boston and the Islanders. We'll do that.
Okay.
All right. We only have 5 minutes. We'll go a little bit long. You guys are okay?
We can go a little long. We have 13 minutes. We're good.
We have like 4 months in reality. Anyway, all right.
Well,
St. Louis, Calgary. This this is the return of the Blues to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Obviously, a lot of excitement going on there. The Blues have had a really strong season. They've been a really good team. They they really no sign of any Stanley Cup hangover for the Blues at all.
No,
maybe for Brett Hull, but otherwise no.
94 points. The Blues hit at 94 points.
I think the big thing for the Blues, if we're projecting this to July, is that they'll have a healthy Vladimir Tarasenko back in
right.
On top of what they succeeded in doing in the regular season without him, having him added to Shen and O'Reilly and that.
Justin Falk was a big add too.
Justin Falk was a big add, and then they added Scandella to replace Bouwmeester before the deadline.
Right.
We know it's difficult for a team to repeat, but
they've got as good a shot as anybody based on their roster composition,
and
top to bottom.
And I think Anthony, they realize that they're probably not going to be able to re-sign Pietrangelo. So unless he takes a 1-year deal with an uncertain situation with the league,
you never know.
But I mean, they had to go for it this year And they could have gone one of two ways. They could have put Tarasenko on LTIR, brought it back to the playoffs, and gone and traded for somebody. But they went basically with the team that they had, with the exception of Falk and adding Scandella, and they're scary. So I would be heavy on St. Louis in this series.
Yeah, I'm leaning St. Louis too. I think you got a year of experience behind Bennington. You've got the excitement of the home crowd, which I was there. Eck was there. They have a great home atmosphere. Even though Boston went in and beat them there, that's Boston. I mean, this is Calgary. Calgary's good, but Calgary's defense isn't what it could be, and their goaltending can be solid and it cannot be solid. And I just think, I think there's too many weapons on St. Louis. And I think St. Louis can play this series either way. They could play it wide open or they could play it tight.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, I would agree in terms of, I think it's St. Louis in 5 or 6 games. I think it's physical. I think we got a surprise, maybe 2 or 3, maybe we get 3 goals out of Milan Lucic, surprisingly.
And the hometown boy Matthew Tkachuk in St. Louis.
Exactly, exactly. So I think there's a chance Calgary can take 2 games in this series, but St. Louis will prevail.
But Ak, I'll tell you something. If this projection of this series is true and Calgary goes out, say, in 5 or 6 games, there's no team in this offseason that will be in greater flux than the Flames. We've heard the Gaudreau rumors. We've heard Monahan. Giordano's 37 years old. They're going to probably make major changes if they don't have some success in the postseason.
I mean, I'll tell you this, there's a lot, and I've always been really hesitant about talking about this, but there is a lot to the Gaudreau to Philly rumors right now. Like when I talk to people with it, and I hate using the Philly rumors, and Gaudreau's from the area and all that stuff, and I don't like to go there because it just don't, I mean, it seems, how could they possibly pull it off and stuff like that? But he really wants to play here. This is, I have heard, like, this is a situation where if he doesn't get traded here, he could eventually be here some one way, shape, or form, with the end of a contract or what have you. But
well, I'll just start with what would make sense in terms of a trade. I think to start with Hamonic and with Brody being UFAs and them likely only signing one of them and maybe not either one of them, that a guy like Sanheim would have to be part of a Gaudreau deal. But that's where it starts. They would have to give them a really good young forward on top of that, maybe Konechny, in a deal for Gaudreau.
The Flyers aren't going to move Konechny. Certainly not after his level of production. How much he's made a quantum leap.
Salary's perfect.
The salary's perfect, and he's made a quantum leap as a forward. But in his own end, there's no way.
I think I can see Morgan Frost happening. I can see Morgan Frost happening in that deal. I could see.
I don't know, because again, center depth in the Flyers system is what it is right now, and you've got 2 UFAs going out. That you're going to have. You acquire 2 guys who are going to be unrestricted free agents in Grant and Thompson. One of them may be back, and then after that, you're looking at
even Pitlick. You don't know if they're bringing Pitlick back.
If they had more certainty with regards to Nolan Patrick, it would be a different story.
True.
But I don't see it right now. I think they look at Frost as a key cog in the future, offensively for them. They won't move him.
They're not trading Couturier. They're not trading.
No, Couturier's in hitting his prime of his career now.
He's their best player.
He's their best player. Exactly, he is. He's their best player overall.
No, why would Calgary do that? That's what you have to. Why would Calgary
may not resign?
And here's the thing. My question again comes down to, in terms of the conversations of where you're hearing again.
Yeah.
Is it coming elsewhere? Is it coming out of Philly? That's the question in my mind.
No, it's not coming out of Philly.
So in my mind, that's somebody.
I think what's happened here is last year they tried to talk contract with him, and maybe it didn't go so well. So I think that's why we started to hear rumors.
That's part of it for sure. I'm going to say it's not coming out of the Flyers organization. There's 2 places it's coming out of, not to give away sources, but is this coming out of Calgary, the general Calgary, we'll say, and then out of South Jersey. Like some people that I know that are close to the Gaudreaus, some people that I know that are part of like the rink over there in Mount Laurel.
He wouldn't mind. He wouldn't mind. Certainly wouldn't mind coming here. It would be important for him. So
I mean, there's people over there that Hollyoak over at the Hollyoak rink.
Hollyoak.
There's just more to it than I want there to be, because it's like something you don't want to talk about, and it's like I keep having to at some point, and I'm probably going to write a blog about it at some point, because there's something to it, whether or not it it's just part of negotiations or not, I don't know. But I don't think so. It might be out of Calgary, but the stuff in South Jersey feels more legitimate to like this is something that he really wants to happen, and I've heard he's told Calgary wants it to happen, so it's kind of interesting that way.
For Gaudreau, with years left in his contract, you can't get Sanheim and a first-round pick or something like that. You need a forward that you can put in your top 9. And I don't know other than a guy like Konechny, and I get the reason why I don't think Philadelphia would do it, because he's on a cheaper contract and he's could be as good as Gaudreau or close enough that you wouldn't want to make that deal. But you would have to give them something on top of Sanheim that could be in the NHL within a year, maybe even within a year, or maybe even next year.
If Patrick were healthy, you could dangle Patrick, because Patrick over there would be a big
Western
hit.
Canada kid. Yeah,
you'd have to have clarity. You need obviously clarity with regards to
conditional first on top of that. If he plays a certain amount of games,
and a defenseman, they would ask for a defenseman,
of course.
Sanheim and Patrick.
Not Sanheim. They wouldn't do Sanheim.
I don't think they're going to move. I think they look at. I think the Flyers look at a Provorov and Sanheim as their pillars. Yeah. That's their pillars on their blue line. If Myers, he's developing very well, and again, considering that Philadelphia didn't have to use a draft pick,
I know, but this is Gaudreau we're talking.
I'm talking about as in what their initial investment was with Myers going forward. It would be really interesting. I think Philadelphia probably prefer to hold on to Myers, but
yeah,
it's probably something that comes up in conversation. But Provorov, Sanheim to me would be
they're not touching.
That's their pillars.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I mean, to finish this predictions off. I'm also gonna go Calgary in this series. I'm also gonna go St. Louis in the series. Although Calgary has won, although they played 3 times this year, 2 of them one went to over. Calgary, St. Louis won all 3, but one went to overtime, one went to a shootout. They were tight games. St. Louis and Calgary, I can't help remember the great series from the 80s. It was one of my favorite playoff series of all time.
86.
Yeah, that's one of the top series ever. Yeah. And I would love to see the battle again. And I think the Tkachuk story is a good story.
Oh yeah.
Let me just touch quickly on Boston.
Yeah, Boston. Yeah.
If Boston could win this series in 3, I think they would, but I think at most I think it's 5. I think the Islanders are completely outclassed by the Bruins. I think the Bruins will kill them, and I think that the Islanders don't have enough offense to compete with the Bruins.
Interesting.
I think based on the pesky nature that Trotz will have them play, I think they can do it in 5. I don't think they'll sweep them just because of that, but otherwise, I agree with most of what Mike's saying. The Islanders are going to struggle to score, and what's going to happen is they'll try and hold Boston back for a lot of the game, but third periods are going to be hell for the Islanders to keep Boston off the board.
Yeah. And the savior known as Thomas Greiss will not be able to save them.
Yeah.
And for me, I totally am envisioning, having an Eck vision moment here. So I'm going to have one.
Oh yeah, please.
I'm seeing a 2-1 Islanders win in game 1 in overtime, and then Boston just absolutely steamrolls them for the remaining 4 games. I'm going to say Boston in 5 with the Islanders sneaking out the first game.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's going to be a Pajot goal, so everybody's going to get excited. and then they just get dunked on for 4 games.
Matt Martin to Ross Johnston for game winner.
There you go.
The teams when they played this year, Boston won 1-2 and lost 1. But 2 of the games, Boston won the most recent game, which was February 29th. They won 4-0, which I think is typical of what you guys are saying. The Islanders having a tough time scoring.
Yeah.
But the other 2 games were 1-goal games. The Islanders winning in a shootout in December, and the Bruins winning in overtime in January. So, I mean, they were tight games, 3-2 games, both of those. It's one of those. It's a really.
But I think if both of let's say, obviously shootouts don't exist, right? But
right.
If that game, if most games go to overtime with the Islanders and Boston, they're going to have a hard time. The Islanders.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And if you go back a little bit, even time further, over the last 3 years, for example, the Islanders have only won the 1 game still. The Bruins have won 8 of them. So Bruins have won 8 of the 9 of the last 3 years between these 2 teams. So, Yeah, that's and the scoring has been really one-sided. The Islanders have scored one goal, 2 goals, 1 goal, no goals.
And the bathroom line at Nassau Coliseum will be massive.
Initially, you said bathroom line, and I was figuring it was going to be the name of one of the Islanders' lines.
Warm heading.
God, it just popped in my head for a split second. Like, oh, he means at Nassau. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Were these sinks in the bathroom, like those big troughs?
No. But they just have a shortage of bathrooms. They had to add some in the outside.
Yeah. So we'll go with that.
Even after the remodel.
If you have any questions in the chat room, guys, throw it up there. We'd love it. Let's do one more game while we're on a roll here.
Okay.
Let's do the Washington Carolina game.
Mm.
Washington Carolina series. The Capitals. Really strong team.
Carolina made as many impactful moves in terms of ads at the deadline than anyone. Bringing in Trocheck, bringing in Vatanen, bringing in Brady Shea. And in the small window that they played after the deadline, they didn't play that well.
Right.
So it's a question of whether they can put it all together. Have that thing that you have when a team that plays together all year. They know where they are. They know where everybody. The loss of Pesce. Now Pesce's not going to be back in July. I believe it was a shoulder injury that he was going to be out.
Yeah, I agree with you.
6 months. So they're not going to get him back. I don't think they're going to Dougie Hamilton back either. It was that serious of an injury. So, you're talking about whatever they had at the deadline, that's what they'll have in July. I think Washington outclasses them. I think the addition of Brendan Dillon helps their defense out. And if Holtby drops the ball, and I'm not sure, Russ, if Samsonov is ready to take the burden of a playoff run.
They would have to be down a couple games in the series, I think.
Yeah. But I think Washington is the much better team. I would say Washington in 6.
Here's what I would say. Holtby can be a slow starter, and he has shown that before. And I think coming off a break like this, I think he would be for this. And I could see Carolina tying this series up early, like having it be like 2-2. And I could see Washington just getting progressively better because all of a sudden it's starting to kick in for them. And so I would take the Caps 4-2, but I do think early on that Carolina could win a little bit because I do think for whatever reason, this Capitals team never plays their peak right away. That always takes them a little while to get going.
Yeah.
And I would look at it from the point of view of in terms of his Holtby's a slow starter. What's Carolina's goaltending situation?
I know.
I mean, that's the biggest question of all. If they get good goaltending, they could beat the Caps. They could. I think they have the capability of possibly knocking the Caps off.
So David Ayres gets to start in game 1?
Yeah, David Ayres gets game 1 just to annoy you, Mike.
Right.
But I'm going to say it's, the Carolina with health and everything, I think Carolina gets moderately decent goaltending, but it's not quite enough to knock off Washington. Even with Justin Williams, Mr. Game 7 there, I'm going to say the Caps win it in 7.
7. Wow, that's a good
longer series than expected. If it was
that would definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to say 7 games, and there's going to be some surprises in there. I think we're going to have we'll have splits in the first 4 games, both teams winning home and road.
I like that.
Carolina may surprise going up 3-2, and then Washington may be winning it in game 6 and 7.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I do. Because Carolina is such a crazy, they're such a weird team to try to get a hold of. And remember, they were a hot mess when we ended. They were from the trade deadline on, when they went out and they did a lot at the trade deadline, if you remember, to get to bolster their defense, and they just couldn't get out of their own way. They were really playing badly. And the question is, Washington's owned them over the last couple of years. I mean, Washington's won 6 of 7 of the last 2 years. This year, 6 of 8. This year the team split. I guess it was. Did they? Yeah, they split. Okay, so Carolina winning 3-2, 6-4. Carolina won the first 2, last 2, which were back in January. Washington won 4-3 and 2-0. So they've been tight, contested games with lots of goals scored.
Now, I don't know if you heard this, but I heard this yesterday, and we know that right now, when the regular season ended, the amount of games that teams played were uneven, and that's why I know that you calculated the matchups based on winning percentage.
Yeah.
One other thing that they're possibly talking about is going back, like say for example, Carolina has 60.
I heard about this rolling back. This is the nice
rolling back so everybody at game 68 is where the season ends, and that's what they'll use.
I have not heard that. I mean, I've heard that. I heard that I saw that Zaravelli did something about that.
Yeah, I mean, nothing
is that actually a rumor from the NHL, or is that Zaravelli's creation?
I'm not sure.
I thought it was Zaravelli's creation, to be honest.
No, I don't think. Let me see. Hold on, I'm under Twitter now, so I can tell you in a second here.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't think Frank. This was because this was a rumor situation. I think this was more of.
This is along the lines of because we
a theory, right? Like he had a theory that.
Right, because
I think it's a little more than. Let me see. Hold on. Let me find it.
Because basically there's no. After we heard the statement from Bettman yesterday, there's literally no way they're going to be able to play regular season games.
Yeah,
right. He's pretty much given up on that.
So if everybody's on uneven footing in terms of games played, then the only thing you can do is roll it back 1 or 2 games so everybody is at 68. Then you have you could say, well, that's going to screw a couple teams in terms of playoff positioning, but there's no
perfect way. There isn't.
Right. And that's why I think you do that, and then you go to a 20-team playoff with those 4 teams that are a point or 2, and then that solves the problem. There's like a best of 3 scenario.
It's not a bad concept. It's not a bad concept. I agree. I mean, it's similar to the concept I was going to talk about yesterday, but not quite. Like the one when I talked to the owner was that there would be that the whole thing about North Dakota, which I guess leaked or whatever, was not for the playoffs, but was for the play-in round.
Okay.
They would take 4 teams from each to play in to North Dakota to have like a play-in.
Well, they're talking about more than one place. I know that Chris Johnston yesterday said that there's the talk about North Dakota, and the rink there is NHL caliber in terms of now Manchester. Russ said that building is
it's not NHL caliber, not even close.
But it's a neutral site where they could get away with it. Chris Johnson said yesterday that Buffalo would be a potential place because of the Harbor Center. You have 2 rinks, one the NHL, the center, and
it's convenient for everybody for sure. It's convenient for the Toronto media and all that. So yeah.
Well, I mean, who knows if media would even be let in? That's the question.
But that's a good location. It is.
Yeah, I mean, now I don't know if they're talking about just using the Harbor Center and not opening up KeyBank Center, but the Harbor Center has a seating capacity of 1,000, but it's not going to matter because they're probably not going to be fans anyway. But it's a good ice surface, and they could play 2 games at the same time.
Right. Yep. We've got one question here. I'm going to go with by the way with the Washington series as well, but I think it's actually going to be shorter because I think you have in Holtby, you got a kind of a guy on a mission, and with the Carolina
contract,
and he's motivated for a new deal. Yeah,
or just to like. He might know this is his last year in Washington, just like being. I think that's more likely.
He may end up being the Calgary Flames goalie.
Yeah, he could. He could end up being the Carolina Hurricanes goalie. To be honest,
could be.
So anyway, that series I could see, and I think it's a 5 or 6 game series. But I kind of like similar to Anthony, I could see Carolina winning the first couple games, that kind of thing. Because especially when you're thinking about we're playing in July, if you're not playing forever.
Yeah, you're going to have some surprises. You're going to have some. Yeah. Whatever mind frame we have about the teams right now, there's too much in flux.
There's way too much in flux. It depends on how teams, who stayed in shape. There's so many factors. Like it's going to be crazy, and the timing is going to be way off. Unless they give them like 2 weeks to get ready, which they might. I'll say is this, and then we can go to the question. There's a lot of pessimism right now from people in the know in terms of reporters, but what they're saying is what they're hearing from the league is optimism in terms of. No, that's all. I'm being optimistic because that's all I'm hearing too. And I think reporters are born pessimists. I'll say that. But the reality is, obviously, Mike, you're the pinnacle of that. But there's other.
He is not the sunshine when she's.
I'm the president of the. I'm the president of the PHWA, the pessimistic hockey writers.
And I really couldn't be the further opposite of that. Probably like I'm always too optimistic, but which is interesting with Mike that you and I get along at all. But but the reality here is that that
we both like Sarah McLaughlin. So there's our
optimistic. Yeah, you're optimistic. I'm pessimistic. You're pessimistic. I'm optimistic. At the end of the day, everyone wants to make money. Like that's like we can sit back and say either way. there's so much money to be made by having the playoffs in July and August. It's not, if we can get fans out to it, obviously. Even if we can't get fans out, there's still momentum to be made from it. There's stuff that you have to do going into next year. You have to, if you don't do anything and you just expect to start in October, you're going to have real issues. That you need to break, that barrier down before then. We had a question from Pierogi Aesthetics, which is an interesting name.
Funky. We asked the question, but Funky Cold Zena says Mike is Hades Smurf.
Yes, there we go.
Just gotta get blue dye for your beard, and you're all set.
That's fantastic.
Go ahead.
All right. The question is, why would anyone want to break up the big 5 or 6 forwards for the Jets, as letting them go or trading them at any time down the line from now? You should be able to guess who the top 5 or 6 forwards are. I guess go ahead.
I think it's the same principle as what's going on in Toronto right now. You have money, a lot of money allocated. In Toronto, it's 4 players making a total of $40 million. With Winnipeg, you're talking Wheeler, Ehlers, Little, Line, Connor. I mean, you've got a lot of money allocated towards really good forwards, but right now defensively, you're in trouble. Bufflin, that contract may go away if he decides to if they negotiate some sort of buyout or a contract termination. So that would open up money to be able to go out and sign somebody. But their defense in terms of depth right now is woeful. And they'll get young guys like Hanola in the next year or two, but they really need a top 4 defenseman, and they're going to have to allocate money towards that.
The only problem is Roslovic hasn't developed as quickly as you thought he would. Sure. And at 23 now, it's a gamble. Let's say they trade Nick Ehlers. Let's say they decide that's the guy they're trading.
Right.
They're gambling now that Roslovic's going to do better than the 12 goals. I just looked it up, 29 points. I don't know if he's getting to the 50-point mark. He's going to have to make a bit of a jump.
Right.
So they're going to have to really decide if they can afford to do that, because they've been getting by with their defense.
Right.
If you break up that top group, then you are really affecting their scoring.
I mean, you may have to trade a Roslovic or maybe a Vesalainen or somebody like that, a young guy not making a ton of money.
I could see Vesalainen getting traded because they're not utilizing him. But look, Hellebuck doesn't make a lot of money, so they don't have to make that decision yet.
No.
Really interesting question here from Richard Petrosky, and I thought about doing a blog about this. So, Richard, you're stealing my thunder a little bit, but that's fine. I forgive you. It's a great question. If there is a free buyout, shouldn't Nashville work their tails off to trade for Shea Weber to avoid the $25 million cap? It's a really interesting thing.
He wouldn't want to go back, I don't think.
Well, this is the thing, though. If there is a compliance buyout, and Montreal uses it on Weber, that
wait a year.
What's that?
He would have to wait a year then
to go back to Montreal.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm telling you right now that I know Shea Weber pretty well.
No, what I was saying is that
he would go back.
That would eliminate the capture penalty.
Yeah, it would. Right.
It would eliminate it.
It would eliminate. That's true. The recapture.
You think Weber would still go back, even though he's older and the spotlight would be on him, and it's in the twilight of his career?
Yeah.
I think probably Predators fans would have an adjustment with regards to who he is now versus then.
Yeah,
I'm going to give Nashville Predators fans credit that they deserve here.
So even David Poile might offer an enticement to Montreal. I'll give you my first round pick if you use the compliance buyout on Shea Weber. He might do that.
It might not be allowed, though. There's probably something that says it's not allowed. That's what I'm thinking.
We have to check. Yeah, we'd have to check.
Yeah.
It is a great question because we don't really know.
But
that's what I really like about the question. It's really
the other interesting thing, and I was I'm going to write about this when it comes to the Leafs, but Brent Seabrook, he can't be compliance buyout. They can't use it on him because he's injured.
Right.
Yeah.
The rules apply to compliance buyouts the same as buyouts. If the player is injured, you can't use it.
They'll do it for Duncan Keith then. That's what they'll do.
They would do it for Duncan Keith. I think they would do it they might do it for Keith anyway.
Right.
But I think you do always wonder about these rules on special situations like this, like if they would.
They're going to have stipulations, I'm sure of it.
His cap hit is not that ridiculous. I know he's 35 years old, but his cap hit is not out of, But anyway.
But his usefulness compared to the cap hit isn't great.
We got 2 more questions I'm going to get to real fast here. El Guapo, without fans, do you think we'll be able to hear the players' potty mouths on television? I like this concept. One of the things that would be cool about if they play without fans would be hearing the trash talk that would go back between the benches. I mean, I think you'd really like.
They might do something to filter that out, though.
I think they would, but I think that this would be this is like the prime time for something like HBO to step in and film that. The NHL would give that to the HBO and have them be able to replay some of the stuff, because you would hear incredible stuff going on. Just think about, like, if you ever played in an open hockey, in like a men's league open hockey game or whatever, and the stuff that we can say to each other. Imagine NHL players now in the playoffs. Like, I just can't even think of how much fun that would be.
Then we would find out whether Brad Marchand is either the worst or the best trash talker, because we'd actually be able to hear it.
Yeah, in the off, Rob JK. In the offseason, Tampa needs to clear space. Who do they trade? Johnson, Palat, or Gord? And what realistic return could they get?
I could see Gord because he's the oldest.
Yeah.
Tyler Johnson is a
Johnson gets you your best return. I think Johnson gets you a good return
because you have the natural replacement there. One of the reasons they have to trade one of these guys is because Cirelli's contract is up. You got Cirelli playing the middle. You got Point playing the middle. You got Stamkos playing the middle. You're okay.
Well, Stamkos has been off to the wing too.
I know, but they can use him at center.
They can use him at center. Yeah. It's not the same situation as, like, say, Claude Giroux, who you don't really want playing center much anymore. Whereas Stamkos, you still have the relative option, I think, of playing him there.
Sure.
But I would say Johnson gets you the best return for a valuable piece that another team will look at him and say, he's our second line center.
And he's making more than Gord, I think, right?
Gord's making 5.5. Johnson's, I think, making 5.1.
Okay, then that might happen.
It's enough. That's what I'm saying. It's enough, and I think Johnson's got enough of a name that you can sell that. I think also to
okay. Palat's making 5.3. Gord's making 5.1. Johnson's making 5.
They bring it up in the chat.
That's perfect. Honestly, it's a perfectly tradable contract for a team, and get a decent number of suitors.
For Johnson's sake, I hope it happens, because the guy's been on the trade rumors for like how many years now?
Yeah.
But maybe the coach doesn't want to get rid of Johnson.
I mean, Yzerman, I think, would be interested in getting Johnson.
Yeah, there's only one thing there, Eck. I don't know whether Detroit's going to be competitive in the next 4 years with Johnson under contract.
Right.
Although you need to have some veteran leadership.
Sure.
Johnson's a really high quality character guy too.
You can pretty much put him right in there behind Larkin there at second line.
Yeah, he's a good fit.
And you can pretty much write in Cirelli's salary as close to what Johnson's making right now. On a long.
What you guys are forgetting is, if Detroit were to get Quentin Byfield, they probably wouldn't go for a guy like Johnson.
That's true.
Maybe, unless, but again, if you're trying to build out center depth here,
they would already have two. I don't know if they would go for another, because I don't think they're going to try and build that quick with an older player. That's my point.
With Dylan Larkin as your number 2, then Veleno probably needs ice.
Veleno's your next one, right?
True. Okay, so Rob JK brought up something fun, interesting too, that I forgot about, and in terms of the Shea Weber thing, that Orpik got traded to Colorado, then bought out by the Abs and signed back with the Caps. Remember this?
That's right.
Yeah.
The question is whether the rules of a compliant buyout will allow that.
Yeah.
Right. This one may just say you get your buyout and nothing else could be done. That's it.
Yeah, that's possible. I imagine usually in these situations they make them as free as they possibly can.
You trade Shea Weber to Nashville. Nashville compliance buyouts, and then he re-signs with Montreal.
That could happen. Maybe. Although who knows? I mean, he might want to stay. He might want to stay in Nashville. We'll see. That's all the time we have. As my dog is telling us, shut up.
Nashville can afford him. That's the other problem.
Yeah.
Well, that's true too. Hold on 1 second. You guys, let me just get this dog out of here. And no, but actually, we'll end up the show here. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'll be back again tomorrow with more of our alternate reality world.
Well, Kevin Allen of USA Today.
Kevin Allen of USA Today, which is probably probably a bigger thing to lead with than my alternate reality world. But we will have Kevin Allen tomorrow. And remember, you can support the show at patreon.com/hockey and keep us going. We appreciate it very much.
And if you want to support me, my email address is never mind.
There we go. Patreon.com/hockey. And just, $5, $10, whatever a month would be fantastic. If you guys did that, that would be really nice. We'd appreciate it very much. Remember, without the buzz,